And I won't back down, not today. Stop singing and get back to work.
Till I make it through the day.
The boy's voice cut through the morning air like sunlight breaking through clouds. 14-year-old John stood behind the counter of a small, struggling coffee shop, belting out a song at the top of his lungs. His voice filled every corner, raw, powerful, alive. It wasn't perfect, but it carried something deeper than sound, emotion. The kind that made people turn their heads without realizing why. But not everyone appreciated it. If you're new to our stories, subscribe to join the Whisper House family. John. His mother's voice ripped through the music, sharp as glass. For heaven's sake, stop singing and serve the customers. John froze mid-verse, still holding the metal milk frother like a microphone. The two old ladies near the window giggled. His mother, Maria, stormed out from behind the counter, apron covered in coffee stains, eyes blazing with exhaustion and frustration. "This isn't a concert hall," she snapped. "You think customers want to hear your shouting while drinking coffee?" John looked down, cheeks burning. "I wasn't shouting, Ma. I was just what? Wasting time again? I told you, singing won't put food on the table." She snatched the tray from his hand and slammed it onto the counter. The sound echoed in the tiny shop. John's little sister, Ellie, peeked from the kitchen door, eyes wide, clutching her small teddy bear. John swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," he murmured. Maria turned away, rubbing her temples. "Please just focus. We barely made enough to pay rent last month. I can't afford your daydreams right now." But John couldn't help it. Even when he was quiet, the music inside him refused to stop. It was always there, humming beneath his breath, hiding in the rhythm of the coffee machine, the sound of spoons clinking against cups. It was part of him, like breathing. And that day, though his mother didn't know it yet, that voice, the same one she scolded him for, was about to change their lives forever. Maria's Coffee Corner sat on the corner of Maple Street, a tiny shop with flickering lights and a sign that had seen better days. It smelled of roasted beans, cheap pastries, and quiet desperation. John worked there after school every day, sweeping floors, washing cups, serving customers. He was fast, polite, and distracted. Always distracted. Every time he passed by the window, he'd look at the sky and start humming again, lost in a melody only he could hear. Sometimes, when the shop was empty, he'd grab anything, a spoon, a cup, a wooden stirrer, hold it like a mic and imagine himself on a stage. In those moments, he wasn't just a boy in a coffee shop. He was someone. He was free. His mother didn't see that. She only saw a dream that couldn't pay bills. "Johnny," she called one evening as he was wiping the counter, "close up when you're done, okay? I need to pick Ellie up from Mrs. Peterson's." He nodded. "Okay, Mom." As soon as she left, silence filled the room. The kind of silence that begged to be broken. John looked around, heart racing. No customers. No witnesses. Just him, the smell of coffee, and the dream in his chest. He picked up the frother again and started singing, louder this time. His voice filled the shop, bouncing off walls, echoing in every empty seat. It wasn't just singing, it was everything he'd ever felt pouring out at once. He sang about love, about pain, about the father who left and never came back. And that's when it happened. The doorbell jingled. John froze mid-note. A man in a brown coat and fedora stood by the door, holding a steaming cup he'd just poured himself. He had kind eyes and silver hair that made him look both wise and tired. He set the cup down slowly, staring at John like he'd just seen something extraordinary. "Was that you singing?" the man asked. John's face flushed red. "Sorry, sir. I didn't see you come in. I was just messing around." The man smiled slightly. "Messing around? Kid, if that's what you call messing around, I'd hate to see what you sound like when you're serious." He stepped closer, studying John. "What's your name?" "John," he said, shifting awkwardly. "Well, John, you've got something special. A real voice. Raw, unpolished, but full of emotion. You ever trained before?" John blinked. "Trained? Like, in music?" "Yeah. Singing lessons, vocal work, breathing technique, anything like that?" He shook his head. No, sir. My mom can't afford it. The man chuckled softly. Figures. The best voices usually come from the hardest lives. Before John could respond, Maria returned through the door. When she saw the stranger talking to her son, her protective instincts kicked in immediately. Can I help you, sir? She asked sharply. The man turned politely. Yes, ma'am. Your son's got an incredible gift. I'm a vocal coach, name's Mr. Anderson. I've worked with a few names you might have heard on the radio. I was just telling him. Maria cut him off. That's very kind, but he's not interested in that. He's still in school. John stepped forward. Mom, please. Not now, John, she said firmly. We don't have time for whatever this is. Mr. Anderson gave her a patient smile. Ma'am, I understand. But believe me when I say, that boy's voice could change his life. I'd like to teach him. No charge. Maria frowned, suspicious. Why would you do that? Because I've seen what happens when gifts like his go to waste, Anderson said softly. And because the world needs real voices again. Ones that feel like his. Maria hesitated. There was sincerity in the man's eyes, but also fear in her heart. She'd been disappointed too many times to believe in miracles anymore. Still, something in her softened when she looked at John, the way his eyes glowed with hope she hadn't seen in years. I'll think about it, she said at last. If you're enjoying the story, please subscribe to encourage the team to produce more. That night, the small apartment above the shop was filled with quiet tension. Maria sat at the table, staring at the business card Mr. Anderson had left behind. John sat across from her, bouncing his knee impatiently. Mom, please. Just let me try. He said he'll teach me for free. John, she sighed, we can't get caught up in big dreams. People like us, we don't get lucky. I need you here to help. He looked at her, voice breaking. Mom, I've helped every day since Dad left. I'll keep helping. But please, this is the first time someone's seen something in me. Don't take that away. Her face softened. She reached across the table, touching his hand. Promise me you won't forget who you are if you do this. I promise, he said, smiling faintly. John's first day at Mr. Anderson's studio felt like stepping into another universe. There were pianos, guitars, recording equipment, and framed photos of famous singers on the walls. He was nervous, clutching his backpack tightly. Anderson greeted him with a grin. You ready to work harder than you've ever worked in your life? Yes, sir, John said. Good. Because talent is cheap. Discipline? That's what separates stars from stories no one remembers. The lessons were grueling. Breath control, pitch, tone, phrasing. John stumbled through all of it. But every time he thought about quitting, he saw his mother's tired face and his little sister's smile. He sang for them. He sang for the boy who lost his father and kept his hope anyway. Weeks turned into months. His voice got stronger, smoother. Mr. Anderson pushed him harder. Don't just sing the notes, John. Tell the story. People don't fall in love with perfection, they fall in love with truth. So John poured his truth into every song. But life wasn't done testing him. One evening, as he was finishing homework, Ellie burst into the room, clutching the remote. Johnny! Dad's on TV. John looked up, confused, and then froze. There, on the news, stood his father, David, older, well-dressed, smiling in front of a brand-new building. The caption read, Local business owner David Carter celebrates grand opening of luxury apartments. John's stomach twisted. His father, the man who'd walked out when he was 6, looked like he'd never missed a meal. Never missed them. Maria turned off the TV quickly, face pale. Mom, John whispered. He's rich now. She didn't look at him. It doesn't matter. But he just forgot us. Maria's eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. Let's not talk about it. But John couldn't let it go. That night, he couldn't sleep. His chest hurt with anger he didn't understand. The next day, during practice, his voice cracked. Mr. Anderson noticed. What's going on? The coach asked. John told him everything, about his dad, the TV, the pain. Anderson nodded slowly. Good. Use it. What? Use that pain. Don't hide it. Every great singer bleeds a little when they sing. That's how people feel it. So John sang again, and this time it was different. His voice wasn't just sound. It was heartbreak, defiance, and healing all at once. Anderson smiled quietly, proud. A few months later, a talent show came to town. Mr. Anderson insisted John sign up. Maria wasn't thrilled, but she came anyway, sitting nervously in the audience with Ellie. When the curtain rose, John's heart pounded. The crowd was huge, the lights blinding. But when he took the mic, everything else faded. He remembered his mom's shop, the smell of coffee, the milk frother in his hand. He closed his eyes and sang. The room went silent. Not a whisper, not a cough. Just that voice, pure, aching, unforgettable. When he finished, the audience erupted into applause. Maria covered her mouth, tears streaming down. Ellie screamed, "That's my brother." And Mr. Anderson stood at the back, smiling proudly like a man watching destiny unfold. The next morning, everything changed. Local papers ran headlines. Boy from coffee shop stuns crowd with soulful voice. Videos of his performance spread online. Calls started coming in. Invitations, interviews, talent scouts. Maria couldn't believe it. Her son, the same boy she'd scolded for singing too loud, was suddenly the talk of the town. But John didn't change. Every night, he'd come home, kiss his mother on the cheek and whisper, "Still your helper, Mom." Then one day a call came from New York. A record label wanted to sign him. Maria was terrified. "You're only 14, Johnny. The world out there, it's cruel." Mr. Anderson placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let him go. He's ready." So, with a suitcase full of dreams and a heart full of fear, John left for New York. Before leaving, he stood in the shop one last time, picked up that old milk frother, and said softly, "I'll make you proud." Maria smiled through tears. "You already have, my son." New York hit like a storm. The lights, the pressure, the endless expectations. People wanted him to change his sound, his style, his story. But John stayed true to himself. When the world tried to polish him, he reminded himself of Mr. Anderson's words. "Don't sing to be perfect. Sing to be real." He wrote his own song, one born from pain and memory. He called it Coffee and Rain. It was about his mother's sacrifices, his little sister's laughter, and the father who left. When he performed it live at a small Brooklyn club, people wept. Someone filmed it and uploaded it online. Within days, millions watched. The boy from the coffee shop became a national sensation. John Carter, the name everyone now knew. A year later, he was preparing for his first national TV performance. Backstage, surrounded by cameras, makeup artists, and noise, he took a deep breath. He was about to sing Coffee and Rain live, the song that had changed everything. But just before he went on, there was a knock at the door. He opened it. Standing there was a man in a suit, holding a bouquet of flowers, face trembling. "John," the man whispered. "It's me. Your father." John froze. His hands went cold. The air around him seemed to stop. David looked older, weaker, guilt carved into every wrinkle. "I saw you on TV. You've become everything I hoped you'd be." John stared at him, silent. His father's voice cracked. "I made a mistake, son. I should have never left. Please, can we start over?" Behind John, the studio assistant called, "You're on in 2 minutes." John's throat tightened. He looked at the man who had once walked away, then at the stage waiting for him, the stage he'd built from pain, love, and music. He took a deep breath, stepped past his father, and whispered, "Sorry, Dad. I already started over." And as he walked onto that stage under the blinding lights, the first note of Coffee and Rain filled the air, the same song born in a little coffee shop, from a boy who refused to stop singing. The crowd roared as John stepped onto the stage, but his mind was still spinning. Behind him stood the man who had walked away from his life. The man whose absence had built every lyric he was about to sing. His heart pounded, his chest tight, but he lifted the microphone anyway. The lights hit his face. The music began. And as the first line of Coffee and Rain flowed from his lips, something inside him broke open. He sang like he was tearing his soul in half, each note a memory, each word a wound. The pain of being left. The strength of watching his mother never give up. The fire that had carried him through nights when he almost quit. By the time the song ended, the entire audience was on its feet, clapping, shouting his name. Cameras flashed. People cried. And somewhere, hidden in the dark corner of the studio, his father stood frozen, tears in his eyes, regret written all over his face. Backstage, John barely had time to catch his breath before a reporter shoved a microphone in front of him. "John, that performance was incredible. What inspired Coffee and Rain?" He hesitated. His manager motioned for him to speak. John took a deep breath. "It's about my mom," he said softly. "She raised me alone, running a small coffee shop. She taught me what real love looks like. And it's about my father too." The room went quiet. "The one who left us when I was 6. I used to hate him for it, but now, I just hope he hears this song and remembers what he lost." The clip went viral that night. Millions of people watched, shared, commented. "The boy who forgave his father through song." That's what the headlines called him. But the truth was, John hadn't forgiven him. Not yet. Later that night, after the cameras were off and the applause had faded, John sat alone in his dressing room. His reflection in the mirror looked different, older somehow. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by a dull ache in his chest. He heard a knock again. He didn't need to guess who it was. "Come in," he said quietly. His father stepped in, looking nervous, holding the bouquet of flowers that had already begun to wilt. "I saw the performance," he said. "You were extraordinary." John didn't look up. "You shouldn't be here." "I had to come," his father said. "I saw your interview. I've been following your journey. You've become everything I couldn't be." John turned his head slowly. "You mean everything you chose not to be?" David flinched. "I know I failed you. I failed your mother. But I've changed, son." "Don't call me that." The words came out sharper than he meant. "You don't get to say that after 8 years of silence. You didn't write. You didn't call. You didn't even come when Mom got sick 2 years ago. You knew. Ellie told you." David's voice cracked. "I was ashamed, John. I thought you'd never forgive me." "You're right," John said coldly. "I won't." He stood up and walked past him toward the door. "You can keep your flowers." David's hand trembled. "Please, can we talk? Just 5 minutes." John turned, his eyes full of anger and pain. "You had 8 years of silence. Your time's up." Then he walked away, leaving his father standing there, broken. The next morning, his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Talk shows, magazines, fan pages, everyone wanted him. But inside, he felt empty. Fame couldn't fill the hole left by what his father did. He tried to distract himself with music, but the notes felt hollow. Every lyric he wrote sounded forced. He even tried to visit home for comfort, but when he entered the old coffee shop, something inside him twisted. The bell over the door jingled. His mother looked up from behind the counter, smiling when she saw him. "John, you're home." She wiped her hands on her apron and rushed to hug him. "Oh my God, you're getting taller every time I see you." He smiled faintly. "Hey, Mom." But as soon as she looked into his eyes, she knew something was wrong. What happened? He tried to shrug it off. "Nothing. Just tired." She frowned. "You look like you've been carrying 1,000 pounds. He hesitated, then said quietly, "He came to see me." Maria froze. "Who?" "Dad." The word hung in the air like a ghost. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Maria turned away, pretending to clean the counter, her hands trembling. What did he want? To say he's sorry. To come back. Maria let out a bitter laugh. "Now that you're famous, right?" John sighed. "That's what I thought too." But he looked different. Older. Regretful. She shook her head. "People like him don't change, John. They just regret the consequences, not their choices." He sat down on a stool. "Mom, what if he's really sorry this time?" Maria turned to face him, her eyes hard but full of pain. "Do you know what sorry sounds like, John? It sounds like nothing. Because he said it once before, the night he left. He said, I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I don't want that word in this house ever again. John swallowed hard. But Mom. Enough, she said quietly. He made his bed. Let him lie in it. That night, John couldn't sleep. He went up to the small attic where he used to sing as a boy. The floorboards creaked under his feet. He looked out the dusty window at the dark street below and whispered to himself, "Why does forgiving someone hurt more than hating them?" He pulled out his guitar and began to write again. The song came to him slowly, words about second chances, about pain, about love that tries to heal what time has broken. He called it Home Again. A few weeks later, he was invited to perform it at the American Music Gala, one of the biggest events in the country. It was broadcast live, millions of viewers. Maria refused to go. "I'll watch it from here," she said. "Too many bright lights for an old woman like me." But deep down, she couldn't bear to see her son in the same room as the man who'd left them, because she knew David would be there. And she was right. As John stepped onto the red-carpeted stage, the audience filled with celebrities, reporters, and flashing lights, he saw him, seated in the second row, beside a woman John didn't recognize. His father's new wife, probably. For a second, their eyes met. Then John looked away and faced the microphone. He began the song. It started soft, just his voice and a piano. But as the chorus came, his voice rose, trembling with power and pain. The lyrics told the story of a man who left and a boy who learned to live without him. A boy who found his voice in the silence of abandonment. The crowd was silent. Cameras zoomed in. And when he sang the final line, "Some homes don't have doors, they just have hearts waiting to open again," the audience erupted into applause. Tears streamed down his father's face. After the show, as John left the stage, his phone buzzed with 100 messages. But one caught his eye. It was from an unknown number. Said, "That song broke me, son. I'll never ask you to forgive me again. I just hope you live happier than I ever did." John stared at it for a long time. For the first time, he didn't feel anger. He felt pity. Not for the man his father had been, but for the man he'd become, old, lonely, haunted by choices he couldn't undo. He never replied. Months passed. John's career skyrocketed. He toured across states, performed for packed stadiums, and even won his first major award. But no matter how big the stage got, he never stopped visiting his mother's coffee shop. Maria still worked there, though now it was filled with photos of John and autographed posters. Customers came from all over just to take pictures in the shop where John Carter used to sing. One evening, after closing, Maria sat at a table, watching her son clean the counter, just like old times. "You know," she said softly, "I used to hate that you couldn't stop singing." John laughed. "Yeah, I remember. You threw a spoon at me once." She smiled. "And look where that spoon got us." They laughed together, the kind of laughter that only comes after years of surviving pain. Then she asked, "Do you still think about him?" John nodded slowly. "Every day. But not the way I used to." She tilted her head. "How do you mean?" "I don't think about what he took anymore. I think about what he taught me, even if it was by leaving. Because if he hadn't left, I'd never have learned how strong you are. I'd never have found my voice." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "You really did forgive him, didn't you?" John smiled faintly. "Maybe. But not for him. For me." A year later, during his nationwide tour, John received a letter with no return address. Inside was a photo. His father, in a hospital bed, smiling weakly, holding the Coffee and Rain album in his hands. Attached was a note. "This song carried me through my last days. Thank you for letting me hear your voice one more time." John sat quietly for a long time, the letter trembling in his hands. He never knew if it was truly the end, but somehow, it didn't matter anymore. That night, when he went on stage, he didn't announce the song. He just looked up at the lights, took a deep breath, and began to sing. And for the first time, his voice didn't carry pain. It carried peace. After the show, as the crowd dispersed and the lights dimmed, John walked outside into the quiet night. A gentle rain began to fall, soft and steady, the same kind that used to tap on the shop windows when he was little. He smiled to himself, whispered into the air. Coffee and rain, huh? Guess life really comes full circle. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who unknowingly give us the strength to become who we're meant to be. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what they did. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of what they left behind. And as John always said whenever fans asked him how he made it, sing through the pain. That's where the truth lives. John Carter's life changed in ways he never imagined. One morning, he woke up to find his face on every magazine cover. The voice that healed the world, one headline said. Another read, From coffee shop to Grammy stage. He should have felt proud. But somewhere deep down, something still didn't feel right. The more famous he became, the less he recognized himself. His schedule was packed. Interviews, rehearsals, late-night shows. There were lights, fans, flashing cameras, but when the noise faded and the hotel room doors shut, it was just silence. The kind that echoes. He'd sit by the window, staring at the city lights, thinking about how simple things used to be, the smell of roasted coffee, the sound of his mom humming while washing cups, the tiny bell that jingled when customers entered. He missed that sound more than he cared to admit. One evening, after a concert in Chicago, his manager, Leo, walked in. Great show, John. You broke attendance records again. John smiled weakly. Thanks. Leo noticed his quiet tone. You okay, man? You've been distant lately. John shrugged. Just tired. Take a break, Leo said. Maybe go home for a few days. People will still love you. The word felt strange now. It didn't mean a mansion or luxury hotel suite. It meant warmth and one person. So he went back. No security, no press, just him. The old coffee shop still stood there, smaller than he remembered, but filled with life. A group of college kids were sitting by the window, laughing, not even realizing the man walking in was the same singer on their playlists. His mother looked up from the counter, froze for a second, then smiled the kind of smile that could light up the whole room. John. He grinned. Hey, Mom. She rushed out and hugged him tight. You didn't even call. You just appear like a ghost. He laughed softly. Guess I missed home. They sat for hours after closing time, drinking hot chocolate like they used to. Maria looked at her son and said, You've changed. Not bad changed, just heavier. John nodded. Fame's strange, Mum. It gives you everything you thought you wanted, but takes away everything you didn't know you needed. She smiled sadly. Then don't let it take what matters. He stared at her, realizing how much of his life was built on her strength. You ever regret staying when Dad left? Maria leaned back, thinking. Regret? Pain? But every morning when I saw you singing to the customers, I knew it was worth it. You were my reason to stay strong. John's voice cracked. You're still my reason. She smiled, brushing his cheek like when he was a boy. Then keep singing for the right reasons, son. Not for fame. For truth. A week later, a storm hit the town. The sky was gray, the streets empty. John helped his mother close up early. They were laughing about something when Maria suddenly stopped, holding her chest. Mom. John said, his voice trembling. You okay? She nodded weakly. Just dizzy. He rushed to her side. Sit down. Breathe. But her breathing grew shallow. Her hands were cold. Panic rose in him like fire. Mom. Stay with me. Please. He called an ambulance, holding her hand as they waited. You're going to be fine, Mom. Just hold on. Her eyes met his, calm, almost peaceful. Don't cry, John, she whispered. You were my song, every day. Those were her last words before everything went silent. The funeral was small. Just close friends, old neighbors, and a few fans who stood quietly outside the gate, holding candles. John didn't speak. He couldn't. His throat burned with every breath. After everyone left, he sat alone by her grave as the rain began to fall. He whispered, You taught me how to be strong. Now I don't know how to do it without you. He sat there until dawn, drenched, shivering, but unwilling to leave. In the weeks that followed, John disappeared from the public eye. No concerts, no interviews, no social media. His fans grew worried. Then one night, he appeared live on stage again, but this time, it wasn't a grand event. It was a small charity concert for single mothers. He walked out wearing a simple black shirt, no spotlight, no dramatic entrance. Just his guitar. He looked at the audience and said softly, "This song is for the woman who made me believe in love, in music, and in never giving up." He began to sing Home Again, slower, more tender than ever before. And as he sang, his voice cracked, tears slipping down his face. The audience didn't cheer. They listened. Many of them cried too. That night, the clip went viral, not because of fame, but because of truth. Every word carried pain, but also healing. After the concert, John sat backstage, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, he didn't feel lost. He felt thankful. His mom was gone, but her spirit lived in every note he sang. He finally understood something she used to say. Music isn't about sounding perfect. It's about saying something your heart can't say any other way. The next day, he went back to the coffee shop. It was quiet now, but he could still smell her perfume on the apron hanging by the door. He looked around, smiled sadly, and said, "You'd probably tell me to stop crying and make coffee instead." He found her old recipe book under the counter, covered in stains and scribbles. On the last page, she had written a note in shaky handwriting. "If you ever feel alone, sing here. I'll hear you." Tears filled his eyes. He set up his guitar, placed a mug of coffee beside him, and began to sing softly. No cameras, no crowd, just him and her memory. And if you were standing outside that night, you'd swear the sound of rain mixed with her voice, humming along. Years passed. The world still loved John Carter, but he wasn't chasing fame anymore. He spent most of his time in his hometown, rebuilding the coffee shop into something new, Maria's Place. It wasn't just a cafe now. It was a safe haven for young singers, kids who couldn't afford instruments or training. Every weekend he held free open mic nights. He'd sit in the corner, smiling as they sang, sometimes off-key, sometimes shy, but always brave. He'd say, "Don't worry about sounding perfect. Just make people feel something." The walls were covered in photos of his mother, laughing, holding coffee mugs, hugging him as a boy. It wasn't a memorial. It was a heartbeat. One evening, a girl about 12 years old came in, clutching a worn-out guitar. She looked nervous. "Mr. Thun, I'm not good, but can I sing?" He smiled. "You're already good for trying." She stood on the small stage, her voice trembling at first, then growing stronger. She sang a song she wrote for her dad, who had left, just like John's once did. When she finished, John stood and clapped. "That," he said softly, "was beautiful." She smiled shyly. "You think so? I know so. You just sang someone's truth. Never stop doing that." As she left, she whispered, "I want to be like you someday." John smiled. "Then promise me one thing, be kinder to yourself than I was to me." That night, as he closed up, he found himself staring at the empty chair his mom used to sit on. He whispered, "Guess I finally learned what you were trying to teach me." He realized something profound. His story wasn't about pain or loss anymore. It was about carrying love forward. His father's absence gave him strength. His mother's love gave him purpose. And music gave him freedom. A few months later, John received an invitation, Lifetime Achievement Award for Musical Impact. At first, he didn't want to go. He didn't need awards anymore. But Leo convinced him. "It's not about the trophy, John. It's about the journey." So he went. When they called his name, the crowd rose to its feet. He walked to the stage, holding a photo of his mother in his hand. The lights glowed softly on him. He took the microphone and said quietly, "When I was a kid, my mom used to shout at me for singing too loud. She said, 'You'll break the roof one day.' Turns out she was right, but she forgot to mention I'd also break hearts along the way, including my own." The audience chuckled softly, then fell silent as his tone deepened. "I learned something about pain. It doesn't go away. It just changes shape. But if you let it, it can become something beautiful, like a song, a story, a reason to keep going." He paused, looking up at the ceiling. "This award belongs to her. The woman who taught me that even when life gets bitter, Love will always taste like coffee and rain. The audience rose again. Some crying, some cheering, all moved. That night, after the ceremony, John didn't go to the after-party. He walked outside, under a quiet drizzle. The same soft rain from his childhood. He stood there, eyes closed, feeling it on his skin. And he whispered, "I made it, Mom. We made it." And somewhere, in the rhythm of the raindrops, he could almost hear her laughter again. No matter how far you go, home isn't a place. It's a feeling. Sometimes it lives in the people who never gave up on you, and sometimes it lives in the music you create from the pain they helped you survive. Because in the end, John Carter wasn't just a boy who sang too loud. He was proof that broken voices can still make the world listen. Please subscribe and turn on the bell so that you will get notified when a new story drops tomorrow.